Do they come from the sky or other dimensions? It would seem unlikely that an alien would look like us. But then, who can be sure? Are they benign? Or are they fierce or bloodthirsty? Do they even see us as sentient beings? Are we ants to them? In this week's discussion, our panelists will build an alien, a non-human, from the ground up. Along the way, we will discuss classic aliens in fiction and our own feelings about life out there. Did life here begin out there? Will we ever know? Then, the indomitable C.L. Cannon will bring us books you may like if you're a fan of Familiar by Lee Bardugo. Next, we bring you the show's schedule for the week ahead in our Go Indie Minute. We round things up with a few turns of Name That AT in this week's epilogue. Now, before we bring on the panelists, I want everyone who can hear my voice around the world to heed this warning. Watch the skies everywhere. Keep looking, because it is another Out of This World episode of This Week in Indies with your host, SM Hillman. And I forgot what to say. No, I'm okay. Welcome to This Week in Indies. We welcome all Terrans here and non-Terrans within the sound of my voice. Welcome to those who are watching the simulcast on Radio Free Centauri. I'm your host, SM Hillman. In a moment, we are going to construct an alien. Very exciting times. A being not from our world. Before we dive deep into the making, however, I'd like our panelists to introduce themselves and let us know who their favorite alien is. So we will start with, hold on, let me get my face out of the way. Here we go.
Okay.
Hold on.
It's musical covers.
It is musical covers. We will start with Jessica. Hello, Jessica.
Hello, I'm Jessica Nettles, author of Children of Menlo Park. You can find me at jessicanettlesauthor.com and on several social medias. It's hard to say which one is my favorite alien. It's either Spock or the alien that I created for one of my short stories, who is based on my dad.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Next up is Juliet.
Hey everyone, you can find me at AboveTheRainCollective.com, which is the publishing company, as well as social media under author Juliet Rose. I'm kind of like Jessica. I don't really have a favorite alien. I have a few favorite alien movies. Like I really love the movie Contact, because when I think about aliens, I kind of think about them more in that realm, like God as aliens or like, spiritual alien type thing. So I think I'm going to go with the movie Contact.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Contact's one of my favorite movies. So yeah, I'm totally welcome. Thank you for being here, Juliet. Next up is Ariel Dawn. Ariel.
Hi, I'm Ariel Dawn. I write a little bit of everything, including monster romance. So you might know me for my Monsters of Ashwood series. I'm kind of delving a little bit more into sci-fi romance. I do have a book out with Stella Nova. It's our Cosmic Fates series. I don't really have a favorite alien. I could tell you who's not my favorite alien. We'll probably get into that later. But if I had to pick like a movie or something where I did favor, I would pick Abyss, The Abyss. I do like the underwater aliens.
That is a really good one as well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Jan?
Hello, my name is Jan Kotoč. I'm the author of Central Imperium series, among others. You can find me on social media. Just type my name, or at World Wide Web, jan-kotoč.cz. As for my favorite alien, it really depends on my mood. And if you ask me again 5 minutes later, I will probably pick a different one. But right now I'm thinking about Ambassador Jakar of Babylon 5. And it was mostly because of his character arc, which is wonderful, and also that the aliens are like very interesting there, even considering the budgetary limitations of a TV show.
Yeah, agreed. Babylon 5 is my favorite sci-fi television series by far. And Jakar, I often describe Jakar as my spirit animal. He's such a fantastic character that, I really love him. So before we get too deep into the questions, we have some Jessica breaking the fourth wall because JD is not here. Thank you, Jessica. AF Stewart is here as always. Thank you so much for being the audience, AF. Yep. Agreed. That is a great line for sure. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Lots of favorite aliens. Yep. Yes, exactly. That is a fantastic line. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's jump in here, and we are going to start a little bit, not with the biology, but we're actually going to start with the purpose. So this is a little bit of a story place, and you can describe, Ariel. Please describe your when you get to your least favorite alien.
Xenomorphs. I have lots of trauma over xenomorphs, and Aliens, the movie, scarred me for life. So.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, not necessarily awesome that you've been scarred for life, but I appreciate you sharing that. But what is the purpose of the alien that we're going to be building today? And maybe you can also speak a little bit to traditionally what is the purpose of the alien as well. But for today, what we're building, just going to start with you. What do you think the purpose of the alien we're doing is today?
Well, I guess everybody's going to have a voice in this. I tend to love the approach that 1950s movies have with aliens, just because it's so goofy, but it also reflects a very specific view of things, and that is the alien as possibly questionable in terms of invasion. That they may come in peace, they may say they come in peace, but do they really? And what does that mean? So I think this alien is presenting peace, but maybe has ulterior motives.
And that's a very political.
It's very political.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah,
it really does reflect the Cold War, and being a child of that era, or the last half of that era, to me, it still resonates. It's like, do we really trust this? What's their actual motivation? And even when we see Close Encounters, there's still that question. It looks like they're peaceful, but there's a part of me that still questions that, even as even with all of that, you still question, what are they really doing, or at least I do.
There you go. Thank you so much. Juliet?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit the opposite. I definitely grew up with aliens, and growing up with, when aliens being presented as like the monster, right? They're here to kill us, to take our land, etc., which really is just what we did. So whatever, that's a whole other discussion. But I really loved Close Encounters of the Third Kind as a child, because I liked the idea of maybe there was a different intent. And I like now kind of getting into current day, where we're really looking at possibly there's more than one type of alien. There might be one that is, evil intent, and one that is curious about us, like we're curious about them. And so there is kind of that like good versus evil. And I really like that approach to it.
So your aliens, you're presenting the idea that they're going to come in peace, or at least in curiosity.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, just as like we talk about all the time, right? We're very curious to know if there's life out there. And I think, if there's life out there, they're probably just as curious about life here. And so like when I wrote in my book, By the Dimming Light, I approached it more from that point of view versus like aliens,
Right. Much to Ariel's appreciation, I'm sure. So, speaking of, Ariel, what do you think? What's the purpose of our alien we're building here today?
So I kind of fall in the middle sometimes with do they come in peace? Can we trust them? And also kind of more the superiority of like them being above us, or, looking down on us for our differences, but then finding, because obviously I'm a romance writer, finding the love and the humanity through that. So I kind of think, the purpose there could be also the reverse of like, can they trust us and should they trust us?
Oh, I think that's pretty interesting, right? Yeah, you come to my house and am I a good host or am I a good host, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jan, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said, and I approach it in my books that we basically were uplifted by alien race that since then disappeared. So we were like their banana republic, so to speak. And then there was a power vacuum, so the humans like filled it in that. But I have several alien races, and it fills all the niche that's been discussed. Like, yeah, some want to conquer us, some want to trade with us, and I think trade definitely would work. Hi, we have this, you have that, can we exchange it? And some would simply be curious, and some would not care about us at all, one way or the other, because why would they? and all these options are valid, and it depends on what kind of story we want to tell, of course, and the authors in general want to tell.
Right. So I think we'll find a little bit of middle ground with this alien. They are curious about us, but we don't know what their real purpose is, right? We know they're curious, but they're also a little bit sus. Right? That could just be communications, and we'll get to that. And that could be their form. So let's go to that next. What kind of form does it take? And Jan, we'll start with you. In this story that we're creating, where the aliens are curious about us, maybe they're curious if we can join the galactic union of not humans. What form do these particular aliens take?
Well, of course, any that we want, it's obvious. It can, if we want to be connected in some way, the closer we are, the better it is for us to understand. But so they can be carbon-based. I think they make other differences, but I think being carbon-based would make some things easier. I'm not sure if should they breathe the same atmosphere? Maybe not completely the same, maybe not different, like not totally different. They don't need 21% of oxygen, etc. But something like that. As for shape, me personally, I would suggest they would be radially symmetrical, like a starfish, for example, is, because it's just more interesting than just being spherically symmetrical like humans or most other animals on Earth are. Like, so they don't have to have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 hands. They can be radial.
Okay, I like that. Ariel, what form does our alien take?
I kind of tend to favor aliens that are a little bit more chameleon-like, where they can either present like us or have some sort of uncanny valley, like something's off, but you can't tell what. But I also tend to read a lot, when I do read alien romance, of the more, for lack of a better term, ice planet barbarian type aliens, so very large, bright, colorful. So that's kind of what I would lean towards a little bit more. But.
Maybe our radial starfish, it has the ability to shapeshift or project an image into our heads.
I like that.
Juliet?
Yeah, so I think it really just depends on the story and what your purpose and intent is in the story. Like I really kind of like the skin suit idea if they're going to be like reptilian type thing, like I love that idea. But I think again, it depends on what your intent is. Like when I wrote By the Dimming Light, I was thinking more like the connection to cryptids, or cryptids aliens. And so kind of going more that route of creating something that looked more cryptid-esque, So again, I think it just depends on what you're trying to say about the alien and why it's there.
Well, they're curious about us, right? We've established that. What do you think? What's a good form or attribute that it would have that would sort of feed into that curiosity?
Yeah, I think that was the cryptid idea, because that's, whether or not we look at cryptids as being something that's from this earth or something that's come to this earth, there's this kind of seems to be a curiosity of cryptids towards humans as well. And so that's when I was thinking about aliens, I was going more that route of like them presenting in this almost like, we still think cryptids are somewhat cute or not, somewhat comfortable. Like there's nothing really about them that makes us like pull back. And I think that's kind of the idea of if they were going to present in a curiosity way, they would be more in a way that we found it strange, but endearing.
Right. So maybe these curious starfish change shape, or right.
Right.
But that taking your idea and Ariel's, maybe there is still, even in their human form or human projection, whatever it is, some kind of uncanny valley. Right. It's like, no, there's something wrong with this person. Right. They don't come across as entirely genuinely human.
Yeah, and that would be like the skin suit ones that don't have good intent. Like we wouldn't find those endearing.
Right. No, we wouldn't. Right. Yeah. Like V. I think V from the '80s. For those of you who remember that or have watched it since, I think V is definitely where they're wearing human suits over their reptilian form. So.
Right.
Oh, I loved V. That was great.
Yeah. Oh, I did too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jessica, what do you think? What form does our curious alien take?
I tend to lean towards the uncanny valley kind of idea too. But I think that even a positive alien could kind of take that form. It could be that weird neighbor that's across the street from you who's gardening at midnight, right? Mm-hmm. It's that neighbor that's kind of off, but does really nice things. That they're just a little weird, but they're there, and they're doing stuff. So, like in my story, Cancer at 0 Degree, we discover, I'm going to give it away, that the dad in the story is actually an alien. But he's lived in this little town and raised a family for 50 or 60 years.
Nice.
And he blends. And he came initially to just observe and ended up staying for a lot longer than he planned.
And that's an interesting one too. You see that idea pop up in a lot of fiction. The alien observer who comes and is like, "Well, I'll stick around for a while," right? So I think that really kind of works with some of the things we've done. So we got this curious starfish who can jam themselves into a human suit of some sort, and really is kind of like your odd neighbor or the odd store owner or something like that. They're blending in, but they're not entirely perfect in their. I guess maybe like the Alan Tudyk Resident Alien.
Yeah.
I'm still looking forward to the next season.
Me too. And there's also a book by Matt Haig called The Humans, which is very similar to Resident Alien.
Okay, gotcha. Awesome. Well, let's see if any of the aliens out in the audience. Jessica loves Close Encounters as well. Excellent. And is naturally suspicious. We get it. No problem. And agreed. Very cool point of view. And Ms. Aliciaful, thank you for being here again. Good to see you. And Enthralled at Dusk, hello again. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see here. Okay. So for the moment, even though our radial starfish can put on a human suit, let's just ignore the human suit for just a second. How does it communicate normally? How does this alien communicate in its natural way? And I'll just throw that out to anyone.
I mean, I think telepathically tends to be, you see that a lot. And I think if we were really going to look at, like, if it was an advanced society, that would probably be the way that we would go, right? It's telepathically. Crosses all language barriers. So you don't have to worry about speaking, say, Spanish or English or, Ethiopian. Okay. You could just telepathically communicate.
You can try speaking Czech if you want.
No.
Is that an advanced language now? I think so. It is for me.
Můžeme to zkusit a vy posoudíte, jak to bude.
It's so advanced.
All right, we have telepathy is one. What other folks' other thoughts?
Well,
I kind of tend to like the idea, just in general, with a lot of the alien romances and the alien stories that I read, that general idea of when, you have that contact and you have that presentation that they are presented to you in something that you understand, so that even though they might speak a different language or they might know how to speak telepathically, they will automatically speak and you will just understand them, because they, whether the hierarchy of, of civilizations with them being advanced or not, that it's on your level, on a level that you can understand. So maybe even, telepathically, or just like an automatic, whatever language they speak, we're just interpreting it as ours, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like a resident alien.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
I agree that the telepathy is sort of like being overused in science fiction. It's like the easy way to solve problems in science fiction, and I understand it. I do it as well, and it's like universal translator in Star Trek. It allows us to understand each other without explaining 8 episodes worth of linguists trying to figure out the language, right?
And I agree. I think telepathically can be a little stilted, like, because you're not getting that kind of direct communication. I sometimes I'll watch it and they'll do that, and as a viewer or as a reader, I feel like I'm not quite getting it.
Yeah. But one of my other favorite aliens are Elcors in the Mass Effect series, and they explain that on their native planet they speak among themselves with combination of language and various scents and pheromones that other races cannot understand. So they compensate when talking to aliens, like from their point of view, aliens, that they say what they are going to say before saying it. So they say like, "Oh, human, delighted welcome, polite, good to see you, polite query, what are you doing here?" And they speak like that in very monotone voice, and because their pheromones and scents are like playing all the emotions, and that's a really good approach, and I like it.
Yeah, there's a fantasy story with a character. His name is Dragon, whatever. I don't remember. Anyway, his species use pheromones, but also smells. Right? There are certain, like baked bread is a good thing, or another smell would be a bad thing. So odor and things like that they can communicate with. Jessica, what about you?
I really like moments when the alien language is separated from us. When they encounter us and we can't understand them. And so they're talking and we're like, "Do you know what they're saying?" "No." "Are they threatening us?" "Don't know." "Well, we're just going to play along and hope we don't die." "Okay." And or times when you're watching a show and they have the subtitles. I love subtitles, but for me it gives a reality, because there are moments when we encounter other people and that happens. They speak another language you don't understand, but you're trying to work to understand. And I think we need to have those moments where we don't have the universal translator in play, where we don't have an opportunity to jump that. And yeah, it makes the story go differently. It may extend some things that we don't want to extend on television. I get that. And some people aren't patient, but I think sometimes that patience pays off. Because it allows us to develop some character. It allows us to develop the world a little bit more, and for viewers or readers to understand. Sometimes we just don't understand each other,
Right.
and we come unprepared.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I think what we can sort of draw from this is, the language to communication feeds into that sort of uncanny valley that we've talked about so far. This alien, right? It's able to communicate, but it's not. The communication itself is imperfect. So it's got a lot of linguistic quirks that we might find endearing, depending on the story, or might find off-putting or rude. That extend the alienness. I think I got to look at the camera. That extend the alienness, the alien feeling.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Resident Alien, for instance, there are moments where he says things and everybody's looking at him like, what? And he's like, did I say something wrong? Especially early on, did I say something wrong? Or he thinks something's funny and nobody else does. And of course, as somebody who has that happen quite often, suddenly you feel like the alien. But he really is the alien, and he's doing that because he doesn't know that it's not funny.
Yeah.
Right.
I think body language is important too. Like, if somebody can't communicate, and we do this, when we're speaking to somebody that speaks another language, we try to use our hands or gestures to like communicate as well. And that can be really powerful in building an alien, is using those body gestures, body motions.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like now, I'm trying to prevent my cat from coming on screen.
Is that knocking
everything?
Is your cat an alien studying you?
Cats are aliens. That's just a given.
Cats are aliens.
Yeah, I think that's probably true in this case. Okay. We have Jessica has come in some more. Yes, feedback as well. Come use your pseudopods or hands or probes or whatever to smash the like and subscribe button, please. And absolutely, and absolutely come back later if you're watching this. Because many light years away. So if you're watching this 10 years from now, absolutely feel free to comment. It's assuming that we are still here as a civilization. We're happy to read those comments as well. Okay. So, last question before we get to Indie Connection, and this is sort of connected to communication. How does this alien perceive the world around it? Right. Obviously, it has. It's able to. Perceptions exist, but does it have hearing? Does it have sight? Does it have? Is it skin? What? Anyone can jump in. What is it? How does it perceive the world around it? Is it technology because it's on an alien world?
That's a good question.
Again, I think it depends on the story. I mean, I think that what is your intent for this alien? Why is it there? I think to start with that, and then your perception. Its perception will be built off of why it's there to begin with. So if it's there by accident, its perception will probably be like if we were dropped somewhere by accident and didn't know where we were, with fear and trying to figure out what's going on. If it's been watching us, I think its perception is one of intent, like, it's coming in for a specific reason. Again, it depends on why you're building that alien and what you're bringing it to this place for.
And I think it depends too on where the alien is from and their environment and how, their environment has shaped their biology as well, So, if you've got an alien that in a sense has obviously a more developed brain, or maybe even like more than one brain, right? There's going to be different ways that they're going to perceive things as opposed to just, like being dropped on, the little pond that is Earth. So I like to think that maybe, with that idea in mind, that it's not 5 senses, maybe it's 6, maybe it's like the extra sense of, like kind of like Jan was saying earlier about, the pheromones and like the other things that are emitting outside of the language that help them process that environment.
Which is interesting because we tend to think of aliens always as superior. What if it's not? What if it's this bumbling alien race that isn't superior? So I think that's the thing too, is when we look at perception is maybe we're the superior race and it's coming in and terrified. I mean, we've seen that in the X-Files and stuff where it's terrified of what we're going to do to it.
Right. And I mean, you got to consider these folks are going to train just like we do. In some way. If they're out in space, they have trained to be out there. They may not be smarter than we are, but they've trained to travel through space. They've trained it, and if they're studying us, then they've probably trained just a little bit to know kind of what to expect from us. Maybe not completely. Unless they've studied us for several thousand years and then they know just how raucous we are and now they're afraid of us, which is totally possible. so they've got some training. They're fairly intelligent because they've managed to fly from one planet to another. They're not necessarily better than us because we can do some of that, at least somewhat. But they may have, I mean, they could have even accidentally gotten this far, not
That's
meaning
true.
to.
That's true.
And then they crash, and here we are, you know.
I wanted to suggest that also they can have, for example, they can have like eyes or ears, but they can have limitations or advantages. For example, they can see part of a spectrum that we cannot see, but on the other hand, they cannot hear some frequencies that we can hear, and
Right.
things like that. And as for their how they perceive the world around them, I would follow up on what Jessica said and say that they also would have their worldview differ based on their culture, the way they grew up in the environment. If you have the thing like, okay, are the alien parents have like alien babies that are just one baby, or they have 10,000 babies in each litter?
Right.
So, and you expect 10 of them to survive out of 10,000 in the freezing wasteland or whatever, and that changes us. Like we are changed and shaped by our cultural environment. I, as a guy in the middle of Europe, have different worldview than Jessica, for example. And a few years ago, I was on a festival of African literature, and I have made lots of friends from Nigeria, and they have definitely different worldview. And the Nigerians have totally different worldview from South Africans.
Right.
So that's part of it as well.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point too. We tend to think of aliens, people from another world, as sort of monochromatic in terms of culture, and we'll get to society and culture in here in a minute. But then it would also be monochromatic in terms of the perceptions that they bring with them. But I imagine, or at least I hope, if we send out a crew into deep space, it'll be a multicultural crew, right? And they'll all bring their. Sorry, I was doing that. Sorry. They'll all bring their different human perceptions and ideas with them, so that this particular starfish might just be, they might just be more scientifically inclined than some of the other starfish. So, we're just really getting one view of that particular species, aren't we? Just from them, right? So, all right. Joe feels a little called out. Sorry, Joe. It's all right. And Jessica is coming out of the closet as an alien. Thank you so much. All right. So now let's take a break from our discussion and hear from C.L. Cannon in the Indie Connection.
Hey guys, C.L. Cannon here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. And today I'd like to tell you about some indie books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of Leigh Bardugo's The Familiar. The first book I have for you is called The Librarian of Crooked Lane by C.J. Archer. Librarian Sylvia Ashe knows nothing about her past, having grown up without a father and a mother who refused to discuss him. When she stumbles upon a diary that suggests she's descended from magicians, she's skeptical. After all, magicians are special, and she's just an ordinary girl who loves books. She seeks the truth from a member of the most prominent family of magicians, but she quickly learns that finding the truth won't be easy, especially when he turns out to be as artless as her, and more compelling and dangerous than books. War hero Gabe is gifted with wealth, a loving family, and an incredible amount of luck that saw him survive 4 harrowing years of a brutal war without injury. But not all injuries are visible. Burying himself in his work as a consultant for Scotland Yard, Gabe is going through the motions as he investigates the theft of a magician-made painting. But his life changes when he unwittingly gets Sylvia dismissed from her job and places her in danger. After securing her new employment in a library housing the world's greatest collection of books about magic, Gabe and Sylvia's lives become intertwined as they work together to find both the painting and the truth about Sylvia's past before powerful people can stop them. But sometimes the past is better left buried. The second book I have for you is called The Whispers of Alhambra. by Kristen Malonia. Beneath the relentless Andalusian sun, the Alhambra Palace whispers. Its crumbling Moorish grandeur hides secrets as seductive as they are dangerous, and Sebastian Mendoza, its enigmatic lord, is listening. He yearns for the unimaginable power the whispers promise, a power that demands a terrible price, his soul. Into this haunted world steps Alara Peralta, a noblewoman disguised as a servant. Her mission? To retrieve La Espada de las Sombras, the Sword of Shadows, a jeweled dagger stolen from her family generations ago. But the Alhambra craves the dagger's power, a power linked to a centuries-old betrayal between the Mendozas and Peraltas. Guided by a blind archivist who sees more than most, Alara navigates a labyrinth of cryptic symbols and hidden passages. She uncovers a forgotten pact, a Moorish princess's desperate bargain with a jinn, and a truth far more sinister than she could have imagined. The whispers intensify, twisting through the palace like venomous vines, ensnaring Sebastian further in their deadly embrace. Alara's quest becomes a desperate race against time. She must reclaim the dagger not only for her family's honor, but to save Sebastian from the darkness consuming him, a darkness that threatens to unleash a chaotic power upon all of Spain. But within the Alhambra's shadowed heart, Alara discovers a terrifying truth. The whispers offer no control, but annihilation. And the sword she seeks may be the key not to harnessing the jinn's magic, but to unleashing its fury. Caught between duty and forbidden attraction to the tormented lord, Alara must choose. Will she save Sebastian, or will the Alhambra's whispers claim them both? The third book I have for you is called Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. When old secrets catch fire, everything will burn. In a mortal world colonized by the gods and ruled over by their cruel, magical offspring called the Descended, healer Diem Bellator yearns to escape her poor village. Her mother's sudden disappearance and the discovery of a dangerous secret about her past offer Diem an unexpected opportunity to enter the dark world of Descended royalty and unlock a web of mysteries left behind by her mother. With a dying king's handsome yet enigmatic heir watching her every move, and a ruthless rebel alliance recruiting her to join the growing civil war, Diem must navigate the unwritten rules of love, power, and politics in order to save her family and all of mortal kind. And the last book I have for you is called Immortal Origins by Taryn Knightley. Born into servitude to the warrior kingdom of Eltoria, Ambrose has spent her entire life confined within the palace walls. Forced to train in secret, she's a shadow among the warriors that are the pride of the empire. Brutal fighters that gather every 5 years for a deadly competition that could earn them a place among the gods. When a fateful night shatters Ambrose's world as she knows it, she's the deadliest tradition, the Immortal Trials. To have any chance of survival, she must face the first trial, the Champions Tournament. As danger closes in from all sides, powers she can't control, truths she never meant to find, and secrets about her world the gods would do anything to keep buried. The closer she gets to the tournament, the more. Is survival truly worth the cost? Welcome to the Immortal Trials. Okay, that's all for me this week. I'll see you next week on the Indie Connection. Bye!
Thank you, C.O. Canyon, as always, for sharing those with us. Hopefully those books folks either already like or will pick up. Okay, so something actually, while I was listening to that, take a slight turn here for just a moment. The mention of the Jinn in one of the stories and things like that. Do we enjoy other dimensional aliens the same way we enjoy, and it's just personal thing, so just feel free to talk about it. Other dimensional versus science fiction aliens, right, from another planet. How do people feel about those kinds of aliens?
I'm not sure if you mean like extra dimensional instead of extraterrestrial.
Yes, extra dimensional instead of extraterrestrial.
I think I prefer extraterrestrial because I'm like more to the roots of the genre. But I remember how Steven Spielberg was not happy with Lucas's idea for aliens in the fourth Indiana Jones movie, and then Lucas said, "Okay, there will be no extraterrestrials. There will be extra dimensionals." What's the difference? Well, they will be from outer dimensions, not outer space. How will they look like? Well, like aliens. So it's if there's a
that's just a cop out there.
Sorry.
That's a cop out. That's not really exploring the extra dimensional idea then. If they're just looking like aliens. To me, when you say extra dimensional, then you're talking about pocket dimensions or pockets. That's when you get into other things, and it's not, I don't know that that's the same. Unless there are aliens in other dimensions that are crossing over. I mean, you could do that and it would be fun. I'm willing to explore it, but
I think for me, when it's like extra dimension, I prefer like alternative realities, like alternative history, when we are like people, but something else happened in the past or something else is happening now, and we don't need alien-looking creatures for that. We can have someone else winning a battle in the past and changing stuff.
I mean, I'm kind of a genre masher in general, where I like to blend a lot of things together. So I think sometimes when I think of like more extra dimensional kind of, it's more, I think of like the time travel aspect, which, you know, to me, I'm like, now I'm sitting here thinking like, gee, how can I do an extra dimensional alien and put in some time travel? So I think I would definitely be interested to see that, because it's not something that I normally read. So it's intriguing to me.
Gotcha. Juliet?
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely like kind of the multidimensional or extra dimensional aliens. Like that's kind of the idea behind Contact, is that she never really leaves, you know, because she thinks she's gone for this long time, and then like she never actually left, and that's because she's really just traveling through dimensions, and the aliens that she encounters through that process. And that's why I said it kind of gets almost into that spirituality, is this God type of thing, going into the other dimensions. And I actually really enjoy that. I like the extraterrestrials too. I mean, I do, but I really like kind of thinking about it in that way as well.
Well, and I think that like take the Jinn, you know, these beings, right, in human lore, there's a spiritual religious connection there as well. And I think that sometimes, you know, you can explore the extra dimensional in terms of philosophy and religion and things like that. So it's a lot of ground to cover, right? But okay. So what about our starfish? Our curious starfish, what kind of society do they come from?
I mean, what kind of society do we come from? Everybody's different. I think that, you know, it's a hard question to nail down, because like that, you know, Jan's reality is different than my reality. You know, it's different than a reality of somebody in Palestine. Like we all have different realities. So I assume that the alien does as well. Like there's no one, you know, cookie cutter alien. You know, they're all very different.
This is a world building question. This is not a character building question at this point. This is a world building question, which is connected, right? But this is
what kind of society produces this kind of character, right? A character curious about us.
I can't answer.
In this case, world building and character building is intertwined. You know?
Yeah, it's so intertwined. I mean, if they're curious about us, obviously, one, they know about us, which means that they're either on a planet very close to us where they've seen us, or they're in a place where they have had some encounter with humans in some way. How that is, I don't know. Which means they probably have some form of what we would call science, what they would call science, because they've got a different language.
Absolutely.
So it's we can assume that this world has technology of some sort, advanced technology, not the wheel, because there's lots of things that are technology. I hate saying technology and it just meaning computers and crap. Technology is anything that advances the society. So we're talking advances, a little bit more advanced technology, enough so that they can see us from far away, right? And so they can travel through space. So they're educated in some way. So it's a society of educated creatures that values learning in some way, because they are curious, and so they value those who are curious.
I think
Isn't that a wonderful thing? I like their society already. They like the curious.
I think too.
Well, at least part of their society does.
Yeah.
I think too, it depends on where their curiosity comes from to start with, right? And and how their knowledge of us is, generally shapes, their belief system in general, right? Are we ants on the farm? Are we, far removed? Is it like, so where does that curiosity come from? Is it more of this whole we've been fed a certain narrative, but maybe we're curious that maybe is it different? So I think when you're thinking about the society, and it is more of a world building thing to an extent, like what is the impact of their knowledge of us? How does that shape them rather than how does their environment shape,
Yeah, conceptual curiosity too. I mean, I have a concept of what an alien is, but that's conceptual. I don't actually know, I haven't seen them, but it doesn't mean I'm not curious. So I think that we have to look kind of, again, where does that curiosity stem from? Is this from knowledge, or is this from that conceptual aspect of it? You have to look at, like, if you look at the Native Americans, when white men landed on this land, they were curious. It didn't work out very well, but like, you have to look at why were they curious? Well, it was just different. It doesn't mean that they, one was more intelligent or less intelligent than the other. It really meant like, here's something different. I'm curious about it, but what is my intent with that curiosity? Is it to conquer? Is it to grow? Or is it to trade? Like Jan said. I mean, it's definitely hard to nail that down without really knowing about why they're curious. What brought them to here?
In human history, there was always this like attraction to the what is called prince from distant lands. Like people always were curious. Okay, some stranger comes to the village. Like 70% of all literature is about stranger coming to town. In one form or another. So I think people like that on some Campbellian like mythological level, and of course, like civilization that grows on a tiny island wonders what's beyond the sea. This civilization that's developed in a desert wonders what's across the dune, and probably that the aliens can think that way, but maybe not. Maybe they can be isolationists, or they can have two factions on their planet. One is curious, the other is no, stay at home, don't do anything outside, which humans have as well, of course, in different names.
Or maybe they're looking for a new food source and they see us as cattle. I mean, with my first novel, something that I tinked around with was the idea, and it didn't make it in the book, but eventually it might make it into one of my other books, is that the ancient gods were aliens and they were looking at humans, because there's an awful lot of human sacrifice. They were looking at the humans as cattle. We were there to feed them. So it could be that they're coming here to look at the cattle and go, okay, how are they growing? And can we eat them?
Yeah, maybe humans are a delicacy in their society, right?
It's possible. I mean, I've heard we're tasty. I don't know. We're tasty.
And depends on
like we have
different countries have different nutrition, so there'll be various tastes.
Absolutely,
Absolutely. Yep. Different flavors. All right. So I think what we have here is a curious starfish in a human suit that has a couple different kinds of ways to communicate somewhat awkwardly with us. And they potentially come from society where humans might be if not a source of food for general consumption, but a delicacy for, maybe as a reward for traveling 100 light years to another planet. So interesting. I think we did a great job today of building this not human who's visiting our world, and who Juliet might have met because they're in a human suit. So you never know.
Yeah, skin suits.
Okay, so next, let's go ahead and talk about what's coming up this week. This week's broadcasts. Okay, so we have a spotlight on multiverse coming up. Get the notes for that. Okay, so at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, all these times are Eastern, live, a spotlight on the multiverse with Tom DeSimone and Kenny Emanuel. Monday at 9, we have a conversation and cocktail with Vanessa Junta. You all probably know Vanessa, who's on here occasionally, and her guest, Bob Magoo. A lot of you know Bob as well, so that should be fun. Wednesday at 8, Trope or Not Trope, or Not to Trope with A.F. Stewart, hello AF, and E.L. Summers, debating the forced proximity trope. Oh, that should be a good one. Pretty sure that'll be a good one. And the Saturday matinee at 6 p.m., premiere of Spotlight series with film festival consultant Katie Bignell. I think I said that correct. Is that right, Joe? Katie Bignell? Okay. All right. So that's what's coming up this week on This Week in Indies. Or that's what's coming up this week on Go Indie Now. Are we ready for our epilogue? Okay. I promise I'll be gentle. All right. So we know the last panel standing gets to take us out with it's always time to go indie now. Here's the first question. Which of these is fictional? Which of these is not from Mars? The Invaders, The Martian Army, The Thing from Another World, John Jones' Martian Manhunter. Which of these is not? Jessica, which of these is not from Mars?
Oh, geez. I think it's The Thing from Another World.
Okay. Juliet?
I have no idea. I'm going to go with something that seems obvious. I'm going to say The Martian Army. Just to go with something that shouldn't be.
Okay. Ariel?
I was going to go immediately with A Thing from Another World, but I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. Is that your final answer?
Yes.
Okay. Jan?
I will go with Thing from Another World as well, because if I'm wrong, then at least I'm wrong in a group, and it's from my cultural background.
I led you to the darkness, maybe.
Okay, so that is the correct answer. It is Thing from Another World. It's not from Mars. Or theoretically not from Mars. Okay, so we're down to 3. In Star Trek, which alien species did Mark Leonard not portray? Vulcan, Cardassian, Romulan, and Klingon. Yeah.
I would say Cardassian. I'm not sure if it's Cardassian. Of course, I would have voted human, but it was not on the list, so I think I would say Cardassian.
Okay. Ariel?
I was going to go with Cardassian, and if I am wrong, my best friend is going to murder me because she's a huge Star Trek fan.
Jessica?
I think it's Cardassian.
That is correct. He did never portray the Cardassian. As far as I know, he's never portrayed a Cardassian, but he did portray the other 3.
I think he was too old by the time Cardassians came to the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. He may have also been, age and I don't know if he passed by the time he used Cardassians or not. So
I was trying to remember.
Let me quickly check.
Yeah, I'm curious now. I'm like,
Yeah, Mark Leonard actually died in 1996. Actually,
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all the questions I had. You guys did a great job. So I'm going to say Jan gets to take us out because you mentioned Jakar earlier. Yay!
Okay, so.
Okay, so
right now.
No, not right now. Right now. What we're gonna do is have you all. We'll start with Jessica. Go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you on the web, Jessica.
All right. You can find me at jessicanettlesauthor.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram, where you can see pictures of my cats, my crochet, and occasionally my baking. Come see me.
Thank you, Jessica. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Juliet.
Yeah, you can find me at AboveTheRainCollective.com. I'll also be at the Honeybee Fest at the end of the month, which is in Lafayette, Georgia. And I'm on all social media. Well, not all, only the good ones. Well, no, some of the bad ones too. But I'm on social media, so you can find me at author Julia Rose.
Awesome. Thank you for being here with us today. Ariel?
Hi, I'm Ariel Dawn. You can find me at ariel-dawn.com. I'm on pretty much every social you can think of, so you can find me there. And you can also find me this summer at Romanticon.
Excellent. Awesome. When is Romanticon?
July 27th, I believe.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Jan, tell them where they can find you and then take us out.
You can find me on my website, jan-kotoch.cz. I'm much more available on social media, Facebook, Instagram. You type my name and you will find me. You can see pictures of my books, but more often some weird memes and pictures of my Legos. And I will be in US in Seattle at Worldcon, which is in mid-August, I believe, which is going to be a very long flight for me. And so if you will travel to Worldcon, you can meet me there and say hi.
Awesome. All right. Go ahead. Take us out.
Okay. And never too late to go indie. I hope I said that right.
It's good enough. Thank
It
you so
worked.
much. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.